I'm Brenda Schivito, and this is You Are Not Alone, the show for news, tips, and stories of hope for those struggling with substance use disorder. As parents of a child struggling with addiction, we do everything we can to help them battle this disease. Just as we would any other disease, we cling to the hope that they will recover, that they will live the life we have dreamed they would live. So when life takes a drastic turn, one we could never imagine, what do we do? My guest today is Liz Pettit, first-time author of the book Unimaginable, Losing a Child to the Disease of Addiction. She is the mother of her only child, Zach. Unfortunately, like my journey, our stories ended in the tragic loss of our boys just 8 days apart. Ironically, and unbeknownst to us, our sons both attended Ruston High School. They both started playing tennis at a young age and both played on the high school tennis team. Although very different individuals, our sons both struggled with mental health and substance use disorder. I didn't know Liz until a mutual friend told me about Zach's passing. I knew I needed to be at Zach's funeral just 1 week after the funeral of our own son. Just one look at Liz and we instantly understood without speaking a word. We instantly forged a bond. We would now walk side by side in those early days, weeks, months, and yes, in years of our grief, which will always be there. So many questions, so few answers. How do we move forward? How do we deal with this unimaginable grief from this unimaginable loss? The guilt, the anger, the shame, the what did I do wrong, the what ifs. Well, today, Liz explains how she has taken her pain and sorrow and turned it into a book that chronicles her and Zach's journey through his addiction and after his passing from this life. I am pleased and proud to introduce my friend and warrior mom, Liz Pettit. Liz, welcome to You Are Not Alone. I am just so happy that you've agreed to come and be with us today and share your story.
Yes.
So let's get to it. Tell us a little bit about Zach.
So, Zach, from a young age, from a baby, was just a bundle of joy. All through his life, really, he was. He was sweet and kind and funny, a friend to so many, loved anything athletic, a natural athlete, didn't do it for the competition, but just the love of it and the outlet it gave him. He managed to go on, graduate from high school when the addiction started, but through college. And, you know, as you said, he was our only child. And so, you know, there's that extra attention I think they get.
Sure.
But I think that, you know, he managed through the addiction, almost graduated from college, Westchester University, and with the advanced computer science degree.
Wow.
So, you know, really tragic. But he was just fun, loving. We were very much alike, actually. And then, of course, had to carry his social anxiety through that, too, which, as you mentioned. So that was part of him as well. But just a joy. Always.
A gentle giant. He was a tall kid.
He was very tall, not like me. So yeah. So, you know, played basketball, to your point, tennis, loved sports. And of course loved his Philly sports teams. So,
Well, he resembled you in your face and a lot of the same characteristics.
Yes,
he sounds like a great kid. I know the time that we've shared together through our grief. I feel like I've gotten to know Zach.
Yes.
And I think in our grief support group, we seem to get to know all of our kids. Exactly. In the light and the joy that they brought us, and not allowing the addiction to define them as human beings, as our children, as people in society. It was a disease that harnessed them. Correct. And, you know, I think, you know, we're here to try and break that stigma and bring light to those individuals who were such wonderful kids.
Exactly.
They really were.
Yeah.
So how did the addiction, impact your family?
So, probably a commonality with many people who have a family member who is an addict, but, it creates chaos, uncertainty, worry. It's your child, you worry about them.
Sure.
Are they going to come home high? What's going to happen if they're driving? So there's worry, but it just really, the disease of addiction, it brings havoc to a family, extended, his cousins, his aunt, so it's a huge burden.
Right. His cousins, who he really did have a sibling relationship
exactly,
with.
Yeah,
Right.
So that was hard for them, and what do they do? What can they do to help? And so it just really has a huge impact. It's like a spider web of how it branches out and impacts everybody. But as his mom, Brenda,
sure.
it's huge.
Sure.
You worry, you hope, both.
Worry, hope, and pray.
Exactly.
Right? We worry,
exactly.
hope, and pray because we know we don't have any power over the addiction.
Correct. Yeah.
Over the individual, nor do they. Their brain and their being has been hijacked.
Yes.
From their level of reasoning.
Yes.
And the substance, whatever it is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That substance has taken over.
Yes.
Most of their existence.
They don't want to be that person.
No.
Nobody wants to be an addict.
No.
And they tried hard, but it's amazing what those drugs can do to hijack the brain, to your point.
Absolutely.
So
upon us meeting, we were just had this connection, you and I, and it's a crossing of paths, some kind of divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. Timing
I agree.
is everything. Our boys went through school and we played tennis on the same team, and here we had never known each other, but it's all for the reason.
I agree.
So tell us about your book. Unimaginable. This is your first book.
It is.
And I am so proud of you for putting this together. Tell us about it.
I will.
Tell us.
So early on, after Zach passed, and even before, I would journal a lot. And no logic to it. It could have been poetry or just whatever I felt. And in those early days, I journaled a lot. And I saved them all. Actually, I used to write on my MacBook, so it was just easier than writing. And then I think, as you remember, in support group and other people who I was close to, I would share the writings with. And I would have friends who would say, you should write a book. And I would be like, I'm not writing a book. Well, what are you talking about? But over time, it just called to me to sort of feel like I needed to do that. I had all of these writings. I had, in a way, I could share it with people who were on this path, with people who weren't on the path, help shatter the stigma a little bit. Like, hey, this is my story. It's not necessarily what you think it is for an addict and the family of an addict. So I just made it a goal, and there's a lot more to writing a book, though. Even if you self-publish, you need help. I had to get somebody to help me with editing and marketing and all that. But it was just really important for me to get it. Now I have this tangible piece that somebody else can pick up and read anywhere in the world. And so, but that's sort of how it came about, from people suggesting it and then me saying, I think I'll do it.
How can I promote and make aware and call to attention to what this is in the family and from a mother's heart, because you write, it's beautifully written. I must say, I've read it a few times, and the passages are just beautiful. Some are difficult to read. You highlight the joys of your son and some of the not so pretty things about the addiction. And that must have been really difficult for you. It was. Yin and yang. How?
I think early on, when I wrote it, some of them I wrote in the early days when it's really raw. So when I revisited those, it was sort of going back in time, and so it sort of re-triggered a little bit.
Was it before he passed or after?
So most of these were after. But I think that when I went and started to write, just a year or so ago, it was difficult to revisit some of what I'd written.
Well, some of the things you had written, I'm saying before he passed was picking him up at, at work and, your anger with him. He was high. And again, the unsuredness, not knowing. Yes. And I do recall reading that.
So no, that was a lot. There is a lot of reflection of, pre and to your point of that, which was difficult for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think it was important for myself to work through it in a journaling sort of way. Journaling provides that, I think.
Right.
Not for everybody, but I think if people explore it, you might be surprised in what it can mean to write things down.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's an expression.
Exactly.
Some people find it through art, which your friend did on the cover, which is beautiful.
Yes.
Tell us about the cover.
So my friend Rachel is an artist, and she, on Zach's first birthday the birthday after his death, she had painted that based on a little dream I had of Zach walking out of his bedroom. Zach passed away in his bedroom, and she gave me that beautiful watercolor called Zach in the Doorway.
Right.
And what a gift.
Yeah, I remember when she gave it to you.
So, so I was honored to be able to put her artwork on my cover. Very special to me.
Very special. Yeah. So nice. Yeah. So nice. So journaling has helped you even before Zach passed. You had always been journaling your feelings and expressions.
Yeah, it's just because there's so much. Again, that anxiety, all of those feelings with having the active addiction.
And it's not something that, you go into the office and talk around the water cooler about your kid's addiction.
Yep.
Where he's going to treatment or, he came home, plastered, he was, that's not something. And again, that's the stigma that we faced.
It is.
When our kids were in active addiction. So the way that you were able to express it through your writing.
Yes.
And poetry, I think, is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great outlet, for you. And we know that there were a lot of people, several people in our, in our group who would do writing and journaling.
Yes.
And still do today. Yep. I mean, we have a few friends. I'm not one of them.
Yes. To your
point, not one of them.
Yeah,
but
I think it depends on what your outlet is. Some people might just like, this isn't doing anything for me.
Right.
So, but surprisingly, even more so after Zach passed, it really became this tool for me to process. But everybody has that outlet.
Right, right. So who is your audience? Who do you think should read this book?
So, when I was writing it, Brenda, it felt like I was writing it for more people who, walk this path with us, who have had the loss. And I realized, really, it's for also those who haven't experienced this. Again, we're talking about that stigma a little bit. Somebody who might be like, wow, I didn't expect this, or this is what it's like, and have compassion for it.
Right.
So I think it's really for any adult. I say an adult, maybe a mature teen, only because of more so because some of the difficult content in there.
Right.
But anybody could read it because I think it can affect anybody.
Right.
And it does.
Absolutely.
We know people know people who know people.
Right.
And my neighbor's nephew, that sort of thing.
Well, that's how I found out, about Zach. It was through a mutual friend and even family members. I mean, I did not share a lot of what we were going through, even with my own family. I mean, we were not living in a close proximity, so I could hide the addiction a little bit, but this is a great book for, like you said, even extended family members or people, to your point, who may know that somebody struggling and gain a more of an understanding that these people, these children, these loved ones aren't defined by the disease.
Correct.
And the love that we provided them and extended to them, and the families and lifestyles that were just like everybody else,
Exactly.
Just a typical upbringing. And that's really important.
Yes.
So in the book, what I found to be really interesting was how you paralleled Zach with nature. Talk about what your interests are with nature.
So one of the other things, Brenda, aside from journaling, for me, that's been a huge help in this path of grief and loss is, from a broad sense, nature, getting out in nature,
Right.
Which I think a lot of us can relate to that. You go out and take a nice walk on a pretty day, it helps with whatever you have going on.
Sure.
But for me especially, I am a naturalist, a bird watcher too, so I like my bird watching.
Yeah, I do.
But I mean, I think for me that really just provided the mindfulness to when you just feel like you're drowning in sorrow and grief, you have that outlet. And, since I do love birds, it really just provided a natural sense of that. And so, a buzzword today is mindfulness, all of that. I can get recentered. If I'm really feeling down or anxious, I can go out in nature and find that. And it really, really makes a difference for me.
Right. Yeah, and you've also referenced, butterflies.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
And
more than just birds.
The dragonfly.
Correct.
And you photographed that beautifully in the book. Well, you have a passage that kind of references.
Yeah, I figured I would share that. It's a short one. A lot of these in my book are short, and I paired a lot with photos. So this one happens to have a northern cardinal. For those that don't know, it's a red bird, which is associated a lot with if people believe in signs or visitation of loved ones.
Is that your bird?
Yes, yeah. So
that you equate to Zach?
Actually, no, mine's the eastern bluebird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that I equate to Zach, which is actually
on the card.
my little card there. So in case people don't know.
Yes, here's Zach.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, mine, it's the red-tailed hawk.
It's a red-tailed hawk.
Right.
I always think of Nick when I see a red-tailed hawk.
Thank you.
But I'll share this. It's just a short passage. Never underestimate the power of nature, of walking in sunshine with spring proverbially in the air, of Zach being in the mix of it as well. That I will never doubt. All of it in the end keeps the heart and mind and soul of a mom whose son has died from completely imploding once and for all. I am grateful for all the beauty I see every day. And I find it fascinating that I can walk in this newly birthed season with joy in my heart, while at the same time holding the hand of grief. How is it possible? I know why I can carry on, even with the loss of Zach, still a fresh 15 months ago today. It's because the joyful parts that come from him will always exist, no matter what thoughts cross my mind, or how much time passes, or how devastating losing him is. Every minute of every day. The profound love I have for him only means that the grief will always be there, hand in hand with joy. And it is 15 months to the day that my beautiful boy went to sleep and never woke up. Or rather, he woke up to a different place with maybe people who also love him, helpers on his new journey. And I look outside, tea in hand on this early Sunday morning, and see more of Zach. A bright red cardinal, 2 blue jays, and even my resident chipmunk Chip. And so, there is Zach bringing joy to my day. Miss you and love you so much, Zach. I know you are here in your own special way.
That's beautiful. I read that again. I did to read that last night. I did. I was going through some of your passages, and I did read that, and it really spoke to me because, on one hand, it's grief, and it's heavy. And on the other side, there's joy. Yeah. But we didn't get there overnight.
No.
I mean, this is, you to write this at 15 months is phenomenal. Yeah. So it's our path is not easy.
No, it's not. It's not that way in the beginning. You don't think you'll find joy again.
Mm-mm.
And it's different for different people, of course, but I think eventually you can find joy again. Thank God for that.
Right.
Really.
I mean, we do move forward. Yes. It's a slow process, like you said, for some. Everybody's on a different track when it comes to grief.
Completely.
A totally different track. And people have to, I think one thing that I learned from our group significantly was that you have to do the work.
Yes.
And the work is not easy. Grief, sucks. And, losing a child is even that much harder. And I think we grieve our children, I always say this, while they're breathing, because we just don't know what's going to happen that next foot falls, or that next call we get, or what's going to happen that's so unsure. So I think, like, what would you tell people, unfortunately, who are fresh at this? Unfortunately, what do they do? Who do they, what would you suggest? What do you recommend?
I think it's multifaceted, of course, Brenda. And to your point, everybody's different. But I think there can be a commonality in one, try and maybe reach out, find other people who have experienced this loss. Even if you meet one-on-one, or if you can find a little support group. A support group was a huge part of my path and finding healing. So that's number one, and I think there are a lot of support groups out there, so that's a good thing. Right. It's tragic, but good. Right. And then, again, maybe try the different tools that, even as maybe your therapist might, if you see a therapist, might suggest. Take a walk, write, meditate, those sorts of things. Absolutely. Find your niche that could work for you. Right. Because to your point, you have to do the work. Yeah. Because otherwise it could stagnate, and you're stuck in that grief and that really low, like you're laying in a ditch. Right. It's not good, And it's not something that our children or loved ones would want. Exactly. Right. I remind myself that when I am feeling that way, I'm like, I know what Zach would tell me if he was standing there, Mom. So buck up, Mom. Exactly. Come on, Mom. Yeah, get to it. Exactly. Right? Go out and do something. Right. Stop. Right. So, right. Yeah. And I agree. And they tell us, like, they're okay. Exactly. Completely. They're okay. Yeah, that I know. Yeah. For sure, for sure. And what's around your neck? Tell us what this is. This is interesting. So I found a glassmith out in Bend, Oregon, I think, who takes some of so Zach was cremated, takes some of the cremains and swirls them into a little glass pendant. So, and I wear this every day, and it's just a nice little piece of artwork, as well as being close to my heart. And then anytime somebody asks, I always tell them. They'll be like, "Oh, your necklace is beautifully well," and I tell them because that's a nice way for me to be able to talk about Zach. Right. Exactly. So thank you for and to your point, about grief support groups and getting out in nature and talking. There's other things that people can do. They can get involved in an organization, or they can do a collection. I know some people in our group have done collections for Christmas, for gifts for people maybe in recovery houses, or they've gone down to Philly and helped with distribution of Narcan or food, or, there's other ways that you can serve and help and feel a sense of gratitude. Like you're helping, you're doing something with your grief, you're making it into something more positive. Yes. You're taking your grief and you're spinning it into something that could benefit others. Yeah, and I think outreach is a big one, because you feel like, what can I do? I feel like I want something to give based on the loss of my child. And that is a big one to be able to. I even know when because I think you've done them for the Christmas. You wrapped all those gifts. Right. It's like, well, let me go to this. I can go and buy all this clothing in here because I can't do that for Zach anymore. Right. So it's a nice way, to feel like I can do that again. It's all part of the healing. It is. It's all part of the process. And helping those in recovery. To your point, absolutely. My son couldn't make it into recovery successfully. Neither could yours. So it's a huge way somebody else can. So if we can help them, and the ways that we give back are very impactful. Yep. Is there anything else in the book that you would care to highlight? Not so much. I think just more so. I'm hoping that as far as the message I have, again, talking about some of the difficult things, that it just can, provide that little bit of respite to anybody who's in this process. And I have had some feedback from those who said it did help them, like, wow, I understand. But as far as the highlights, again, I really do call out quite a bit of the positive of the avenues that I've taken through mindfulness and nature and birding.
Right.
And that's a big piece that I hope can help people in the process. But otherwise, it's fun because I matched photos that I took. Since I am a photographer, I didn't mention that. Hobbyist photographer, nothing serious. But I liked, it was kind of, I enjoyed matching a photo to each piece that I wrote. It was just another way to sort of symbolize Zach and my process.
Right. Well, something that we did together with two other friends of ours who also lost their boys was we went on a trip together.
Yes, we did.
And tell us about that. Where did we go?
So Mike, I was crazy. I'm like, hey, do you guys want to go to Anguilla? It's an island down in the Caribbean that I had taken Zach a couple years prior. So it was real special to me.
Right.
And including riding horses in the ocean.
Right.
Which I think Colleen was a little not sure about that. But so we went, and it was kind of like a little retreat for the four of us, all having lost our boys, boys, and a fun get together for camaraderie and grief and joy, all of those things.
Right, it was.
But to do it together, I think, is special because, again, people can understand to a certain level, but until you've really walked that path. So that was a fun time for sure.
That was fun. Yeah, we enjoyed that. And that we celebrated Zach's birthday.
We did.
Okay, we had a cake.
That was a good time. Plus, it's just a beautiful place to go.
It is beautiful, and you've been there since.
Yeah, I have. I try and go every year. COVID was a little tricky, but
right. It's a beautiful place.
That's a place. Yeah,
it was. It was a
and we scattered some of Zach's ashes down there where we took the boat. We took a boat ride there.
Right. Yeah, it was beautiful.
So that makes it special too. Sort of scattering him around the world, places he'd been.
Yeah, he was quite adventurous.
He was.
You guys did a lot
for his young age. He did a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And jumping off the cliff. I remember that picture. All those beautiful memories that we're so fortunate to have those memories and those photographs, and we can call on them to bring us joy.
Completely.
And to keep the joy.
I definitely lived through the photographs and music and all of that. It's a huge help in the process. So.
Yeah. And the cars that we see.
Yes.
It look like our kids' cars.
Yes, I do. I have that one in here. So, yeah.
I know you do. Well, this has been fabulous.
Yeah,
it really has.
Thank you for having me.
I am just so proud of you.
Thank you.
For your accomplishment. And
thanks, Brenda.
And this book has been, I'm sure, a blessing for a lot of people. And I'm so happy that you're able to join us today.
Thank you for having me, Brenda.
So much. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm Brenda Schivito. And remember, you are not alone. If you or a loved one needs help, or you would like to make a donation to Angels Against Addiction, go to angelsagainstaddiction.org. I'm also urging that everyone gets trained in how to administer the life-saving nasal spray naloxone, better known as Narcan. It will soon be offered over the counter in a pharmacy near you. No questions asked. I believe that together we can help save lives. Thank you.